So, welcome Whitney Fleming to the Rebranding Middle Age podcast. I'm just going to dive right in and read Whitney's bio. Whitney Fleming is a writer, social media consultant, mother, and advocate. She's passionate about telling stories that help others feel less alone and puts an authentic voice to issues such as parenting, mental health, grief, marriage, and midlife. Whitney owns the blog Parenting Teens and Tweens and is the voice behind the popular social media account Whitney Fleming writes. And of course, I will share a link. So, welcome, Whitney.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So, it's funny because we're going to just dive right in and we're talking in part at least about the messy middle season of life,
Mhm.
the transition of launching kids into the world, what that means for you as a human and also a parent. And the funny part is that it took us a little bit to actually make this meeting happen because
Me.
of because of the reality of
Yep.
you're in transition. So
Mhm.
if you're open to it, would you share your age and
Sure.
or the just share a bit about the season of life that you're in?
Sure. I am 52 and I have three daughters, and they're all in college right now. I have twins who are going into their junior year, and my
And
youngest
sorry,
daughter,
just for us Canadians, what does
oh,
that mean? Is that your first year?
third year. So my
Junior is
my
third.
twins are going into their third year, and my youngest daughter is going into her second year of college. And so we this is the first year for me that I have one of my children decided to stay at school and didn't come home for the summer. So it was very challenging for me to she's doing wonderful. Living her best life in every single way. And I am thrilled and also crushed. And it's like having a dagger in my heart. It's that push and pull that I feel during this time. Basically every second of every day. I feel just this angst of I'm so happy for them and I'm sad for me. I'm also excited for me and also just sad. And it's just all of these ball of emotions in one. And to put the cherry on top of those emotions, we're also in a transition where my husband received a great job offer and it's in a different state. I'm moving from Illinois to Michigan, which is not what was in my life plan at this time because I was hoping to maybe move to a climate that was not Florida warm, but slightly warm. And so, in fact, we're going north and going to some place where there's a lot more snow and a lot more just cold in general and gray and things like that. So this has been a summer about reconciliation of all of my emotions with my kids and where I thought my life would be and how to really bring some joy back into what's been a little bit of a gray period for me in a lot of different ways. And it's been a journey and it's been hard, but we're getting there. So
Mm. Well, thank you. I mean, there's so many directions I'd love to spin off. I do want to acknowledge a large percentage of my listeners and community members are not parents.
right,
And some, and obviously that leaves a whole bunch that are. And so we will be talking about parenting here because number one, that's the theme of your work, really, a
right.
large theme. Two, I too am a parent and I've gone through, and this is a really significant transition
Mm-hmm.
for parents when you've poured yourself into these humans
Mm-hmm.
and you need to really find, at least from my perspective, we need to be whole humans apart from the roles of
100%.
parenthood, even if parenthood was a great joy. Um, and and then also I do want to make some space at some point today to talk about the messiness, like
Mm-hmm.
the messy reality, how it's not only sparkles and rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, anyway, so we'll kind of meander and see where we go. But you shared fairly recently on social, you share a lot on socials and
Mm-hmm.
you're very open, which I appreciate. But you shared recently that you've been feeling a little lost and feeling lost
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. You talk about creating a new life, figuring out who you are in this next phase. And you wrote, I've been a shadow of myself for a while now. What's been going on? Like you just touched on a little bit, but I wonder if you want to share, if whatever you're comfortable sharing around this, like what's been going on that has led you to feeling like a shadow of yourself?
I would say this, what I call the menopause era, perimenopause and menopause, has been a lot harder for me than I thought it would be. I was always, yeah, I'm an open book, and vulnerability, I often say, is my superpower. It's, I don't have a problem with it. I'm very open. I usually can kind of go with the flow and go with the changes, or learn to. Maybe I don't respond well exactly in that moment, but pretty much it's about parenting, but it's also not about parenting. If I go back to when my kids were in their preteens, is when I really started having a lot of self-actualization, and realizing that I wasn't exactly who I thought I was, and not that I was a bad person or I didn't like who I was. I just realized that I had carried with me a lot of behaviors that I grew up with that I didn't want to see. And that started the whole, I would say, the pebble that started the avalanche in really trying to figure out who I was and who did I want to be, and what kind of parent did I want to be, what kind of woman did I want to be, what kind of wife or partner. So, dealing with three children who hit the teenage years at the same time, because there's only 16 months apart between my older twins and my younger daughter. So there was a lot of hormones in my house, theirs, mine, their friends, my husband having to deal with it. It was just a lot. And that was when I realized that I did not have good coping mechanisms to deal with stress. I had massive amounts of anxiety that I had never dealt with. I had a kid who didn't really know how to communicate her feelings, because even though I'm good at being vulnerable, I wasn't good at processing and managing my emotions, and all of the things that I just didn't realize were a problem in my life, because I'm an overachiever and I'm a people pleaser and I've been successful in a lot of ways. So that was the impetus for me, was probably about a decade ago when my kids started this whole preteen journey. And then I think I grew a lot as a person, but then just I don't thrive in a lot of chaos. It's just um not, even though because I'm already frenetic. So my husband always describes my brain to other people as, most people, have a tennis ball machine in their head, and the tennis ball goes out and you hit it. I have about 3,000 tennis ball machines in my head, and they're moving all the time, and I'm trying to hit every single one perfectly. And not that I'm a perfectionist, but I never can shut off my brain. And so when I really, after I worked on myself a lot and I had this better relationship with my kids, I realized that there was a lot of things I still needed to deal with in my life. And I don't say, like, I don't have a lot of traumatic experiences. I just was raised in a way that my personality didn't suit that. And I really needed to figure out how to find some peace within myself. And that's really hard when you're going through menopause and perimenopause. And so when I started trying to work on myself, I started like losing control of my body. I gained weight and I was exhausted all the time. And the harder I tried to control my anxiety, the more it seemed to get the best of me. And so I felt like I was just on this hamster wheel and not getting anywhere. And in fact, a lot of times I was going backwards. So on top of that, there's just the chaos of the world around us right now. I have a job on social media, and that's kind of a dumpster fire. And there was some changes in my business, and I put out a book that was not as successful as other people hoped. And so there was just a lot of pressure on me that I just did not know how to deal with. And then I had some medical hormonal issues that were not helping, that I think made a lot of this worse. So I just got to the point where I just didn't even recognize myself sometimes. And in fact, I got in an argument with my husband one day over something ridiculous. And I said it was like watching myself from above, but I couldn't turn myself off. Like I couldn't stop it. And so that was when that was about 8 months ago. And I just started really examining everything in my life and medically, physically, psychology, like mental health wise, even my relationships. And I've been doing this over time, but I really started prioritizing certain things. And that's when I started finally feeling better, but I really had to dig deeper and, confront some things that I just thought would go away, and they just weren't. So
Hmm.
that's been a little bit of the journey, where I'm at. So I really just felt like I knew who I wanted to be, but I could not get there. And it was so frustrating to feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, I'm hearing you and I'm like, yeah, and you sound like every woman to some
Mhm.
degree who
Right.
joins me in my Brave and Beautiful membership community, Um, and but that control thing, that control piece is really
Mhm.
challenging. And I was thinking about when you were saying like your kids were preteens, I think, when you kind of entered this, what I think of as an unraveling, rewilding, this
Mhm.
very messy but freeing time of life. It's hard, hard, hard. And there's so much good stuff that comes out of it if we
Mhm.
can find our way through and hold on to hope that there is
Yes.
an exit point.
Mhm. Right.
Um, and there is. So as you know, you're feeling probably, I'm assuming, but I say that for anybody listening who's in the thick of it too.
Right.
So
Well, that was the saving grace for me, was that I actually did build really solid relationships with my kids. So that part I felt great about. I kind of overcame some of those bad habits that I would call where I was overreacting or being too controlling, and really accepting my kids for who they were and what they wanted to get out of life, and writing alongside them instead of them trailing behind me. So that was the something I am really proud of, and I talk about that a lot because
good.
that was not the path we were going on. But the
Mm,
rest of my life was a little bit of just this roller coaster ride that I just couldn't get off of.
yeah. So a lot of, I think what you're talking about, like there's the hormonal component, there's sort of the becoming our
Mhm.
truer, healthier selves stuff. Often there can be relationships that end or change, a lot of change, sort of internal, external during that time. So are there a couple key things that you want to go deeper into, a couple key shifts, a couple key challenges? Um, yeah.
I think for me, one of the things was taking control of my physical health. I always thought I was a very healthy person. I've always exercised pretty, like, not die hard. I don't run marathons, but I'm a huge walker. I will, I thought I was lifting enough weights, or I've always been a healthy eater, but I really had to change my mindset with that. I also talk a lot about that I had horrible all of the horrible symptoms that go along with menopause, like hot flashes and things like that, and working with a doctor that was actually listening to me, because I actually went on hormone replacement therapy and it backfired a little bit on me. I was on too high of a dose. It impacted my thyroid, and that's really what made me so volatile for a long time, and it really impacted my health. And I thought it was all me, and that
Mm,
still wasn't taking care of myself right, and I still wasn't doing all the things right. And it took a simple blood test to realize that I had too much estrogen. I was on too much estrogen and too much progesterone. And so just dialing that back was a huge deal for me. And I always tell people I am not a medical doctor at all. I don't ever really talk about what other people should do. But I think finding a good person who you can talk to can really change everything for this stage in your life. And in fact, I was
mhm.
really touched the other day. A woman in my book club who's about 10 years younger than I am asked if her neighbor could speak with me, because she was a little older than all of her friends and she was starting to really manage these menopausal, perimenopausal symptoms. And she's like, I have nobody to talk to. I don't know what to do. And so I felt really, I was walking my dog while I was chatting with her on the phone, and she just kept going, oh, thank God that you're telling me this. Thank God. Like
Yeah.
she had no hope and she had no idea what was going on. So that's why
Mhm.
I instantly wanted to come on and talk to you, because I think this is such an important time, because even though everybody's talking about it right now, if you're on social media, they're not talking about the right things, and they're talking about how to lose weight and all of these
Mm.
other things, and they're not talking about how to set yourself up for this other part of your life. And that's what I'm trying to do now, and I know that you're doing in your coaching, is how do we set ourselves up for this next phase. But the health part was a huge component of for me, and I
Mhm.
just assumed that I was doing everything right, and
Mhm.
it was not working. And so I felt
Yeah.
like a failure when it really was just a simple prescription change that changed everything for me and my health.
Yeah. So I really appreciate that you said that because like over the decades, I've had times in my life, some of which I've written about or I've talked about on my podcast, where I was experiencing significant, like in my case, anxiety, mental health challenges, even suicidal thoughts. And it actually boiled down to a small medical tweak. So I have Hashimoto's,
Right.
autoimmune thyroid
Yes.
disease, and when my levels are off,
Yep.
I feel it. And if you have a doctor who isn't listening, that is a
Right.
big problem.
100%.
Um, yeah, and so yeah, I often say like to, my clients, my community members, my friends, my siblings,
Mhm.
whatever, go get testing. If somebody
Yes.
won't listen to you, find another healthcare
Find another
provider
doctor. Mhm.
because like there's a lot of bullshit that
Yes.
floats around, and we
Yeah.
need to be a strong and fierce advocate for
Right.
ourselves like
Right.
never before, I
Well,
think.
and it's interesting. I know a lot of people are really tough on doctors, and I think their jobs are really hard. But I'll tell you, my experience with my own OBGYN, who I really like it, but she, I don't, she went to medical school during the time when they were really, that HRT study came out that said it was linked to breast cancer. And I realize now, even though we're close in age, she hasn't really had the need to really take the time to really learn about it.
Hmm.
And so she was the one that put me on this standard dose that really put me out of whack, as opposed to maybe I should have seen a specialist. She wasn't necessarily opposed to it, but she wasn't really for it. I don't know how
Hmm.
informed she was. Like, and
Yeah.
that was on me. And then that was when I realized even a good doctor may not be the right doctor, for you. And you really, the need for specialty during this menopause time, I
Yeah.
think is paramount. And
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that it's changing. And that's why I talk about it a lot, is just because everybody's like so scared to talk about it and suffers in
Yeah.
silence, and we take all this blame, as we always do, I feel like, as women, and it
Yeah.
just doesn't, I don't think it needs to be that way.
Yeah. In an episode in the last 6 months or so, when I was talking to she's not a pelvic floor therapist, but I can't remember kind of what well, the vagina coach. She calls herself the vagina coach. So she
That's
does a
great.
lot of um, pelvic floor therapy work. I just don't remember if that's her clear therapy training.
Okay.
But anyways, I've learned a lot from her. And I think it was in that episode that I was sharing something I had read, some research that said that women typically wait. I might have this completely wrong now, but something like at least 6 months. Like we
Right.
wait when something's wrong. We don't go to the doctors. We don't ask for help. Sometimes I think it's
Exactly what
because
it
we're
is.
so busy serving and caring
Mhm.
for everybody else. I do
Yep.
think that in my experience, there's a lot of like reluctance because we've been dismissed, we've been spoken
Mhm.
over. Like even my little sister, who she's early 30s, she's a NICU nurse. I don't know what that's called in the United States,
Yep.
but
That's what's called.
she recently went to this doctor and he was a young guy and said, look, I won't talk about her stuff, but this is what I need, whatever. And he told her, don't believe everything you read on Google. And I was like,
Right.
wow.
Right.
Like so it happens a lot. Yes,
I know.
there are a lot of very
Right.
overworked physicians and many who are wonderful humans, but that doesn't
Right.
mean that they have all the information, all the
Hundred.
education. They're staying up to date on all the things. They don't have all the specialization.
Yep.
So, yeah, so there are a lot of reasons I think why we're reluctant, but I think we need to also take responsibility for that and break some of these
100%.
habits. When
Mhm.
we're noticing something, use your voice, ask for help, persist,
Right.
ask for testing,
Yep.
and yeah. So,
For me, I went specifically, I was having such bad hot flashes at night that I couldn't go back to sleep. So if I was getting 3 hours of sleep a night, I think that was probably overestimating it because I would wake up
wow.
with these and I was going crazy. And so the hormone replacement therapy helped with that immediately. And so I just figured, okay. So when I started having all these other problems, I just was like, well, I don't want to have hot flashes again. Or I just had no idea that there could be this connection. And I
Right.
usually like to research everything and really study up on it. And it was a friend who's a dietitian who has been really diving deep into all of these hormonal issues, who said to me, I really think you need to go and get your hormones checked again. I'm like, I just got them checked, 6 months ago. And she's like, no, something's not right. And it was
Yeah.
her, it was a friend who said,
Right.
go check it out. And that's why I talked about it. I've had several people message me on my social media channels asking me questions. And I'm like, you have to go to your doctor and get a blood test, because I found out, like, I had somebody that just came to me and said, after you wrote a post, my doctor said, oh no, your HRT won't impact your thyroid. And I said, that's 100% not true. I'm not a doctor, but I 100% know that too much estrogen impacts your thyroid. And like, there's articles about it. Like, my doctor talked about it. And I'm case in point, because my thyroid doubled in the time I was on my estrogen. And so I was like, that person might not think your HRT is impacting your thyroid, but it could be an issue, and you'll never know if you don't get tested. And so
Right.
that's the kind of environment we're in right now, where you don't want to be that person who is constantly like a hypochondriac, but in the same sense, we have to figure out what's going on
And
with
yet, where
us
does
right
that
now.
even come from? Even
Right?
that thought that somebody will think I am a hypochondriac, where does that even
Right.
come from? Because
I
women
don't
are
know.
historically shut down
Or
and told you're too
hysterical, right?
dramatic. You're
Mm-hmm.
exactly like we need to push
Mm-hmm.
back against that. That is
Yep.
bullshit. And
That's
it's
exactly
not
what
what
I
I
said. I'm
want for
like,
my, yeah.
I'm 100% sure that, I mean, my thyroid has been the same level for like many years. Every year I get a test, and every year it's within a certain range. And then my thyroid was double that from where it was. In fact, we were looking at
So your
Hashimoto's.
TSH
My TSH level
dipped. Yeah.
went from like a 1.5 to like a 3.9, which is still in the normal range here, but was such a significant impact for me that it was
Yeah.
messing with everything. So
And also, if somebody already has antibodies, like I know this isn't a medical conversation,
right,
but also
right,
your TSH, even if it's within normal range and you have antibodies,
right.
then
That's what my
you,
doctor
if you're
said.
not looking at the
Mhm.
antibodies, you could have all the problems, all the
Yep,
symptoms. And so
yep,
I'm really proud of my daughters. Shout out to my young daughters who go and they are on it and they have
yep,
found good care where they, because of me,
yep.
they get their antibodies. They both have antibodies, but
Right.
TSH in normal level, but they're monitoring.
That's
They're,
great,
yeah,
because
I'm
it's
really proud of
genetic
them.
often. So I
Yeah.
I had this interesting conversation with two of my daughters the other day. Or actually it was a few months ago when my daughter was home. She's an athlete and she runs cross country and track. And they were sitting there and they were like, we don't think social media is good for us in some ways, but in other ways, we've learned so much about like how their cycle impacts certain weeks like. So my one
Yeah.
daughter who's a runner, she's like, right.
It's
And I
wonderful.
said, she's like, I now know how this impacts me. And I said, gosh, I was trying to be so open and so we talked about it openly. My husband was great about that, like no shame, but I still never thought even to go into that level of depth for them. And I
Yeah.
was like, I was a really proud moment that they were trying to address these women health issues that
Yeah.
I certainly did not. and
Yeah.
take control and ownership of them and give themselves great, like, and that's what my daughter said. She's like trying to do some things now. She knows, like, if she has a race leading up to 4 days before she gets her period, then she knows to do certain things now to try to ease that a little bit and to address it so she can be her best self during that time. And I thought that was just
Hmm.
amazing that she just runs in a Division 3 program, so she's not in that big, but she loves it and she wants to be her best in it. And I thought that was just such a great moment of showing how this next generation is coming up and they're just so much more aware, and it's
Hmm.
just part of their life and they're integrating it in to
Yeah.
it. And it was a really great feeling.
That is amazing. And I mean,
Yeah.
it goes, yeah, that conversation around social media, those of us who actually work online and it's sort of this like
Mhm.
there's part of me that I'm like, I can't anymore. Like I just
Right.
so I just have need really, really good solid boundaries and
Right.
but I don't want to just discount all the benefits like that allow us to
Right.
connect, allow us to have
Yep.
brave, honest conversations, allow our, people to get receive quality health education they're not getting
Right.
in their backyard
Right.
and all the good things. So I mean, there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but I want to touch on like social media is a big thing right now. I noticed in the last 6 months, we don't need to go deep into the political waters, but
Sure.
there's some big shifts happening in North America and thousands of people left immediately. They're just like, I'm out. I can't do this
Right.
anymore. Um, and other changes, but how are you managing your own well-being, Whitney, given that you are using your voice online? It is tied, I'm assuming, to income and the work you want to do in the world. How are you taking good care of yourself right now and do you have good boundaries around social media use?
I have major boundaries that I actually set up a while ago. I don't always adhere to them, and the second I go off the rails, like everything in my life goes bad. Um, my biggest challenge is always people want me to address things that are important to them, and they also might be important to me. But I have learned that my work life and my personal life has to be separate. So I always tell people just because I don't write about it on my work platform does not mean that I don't care about it or that I'm not doing something about it in my personal. Um,
Mm.
if you
Oh,
ever
I see. So like pressure to talk about a cause or an
political
event
cause or
or
a
a
political
thing that's
issue
happening.
or
Okay.
something.
Hmm.
And people will guilt me and they'll say, you have such a powerful voice or you have so many followers and you waste it. And they tell me all of these things.
Hmm.
And I always have to remind myself about what my why is, and which
Mm.
is really, I just share stories to make other people feel less alone. And I just comment on things that are going on in my life or who have happened in the past and things I'm learning about myself. So a lot of people will ask me, how do your kids feel about you talking about them on social media? And I said, if you really read my work, I actually don't talk about them because they're always age appropriate and where they're supposed to be. I talk about myself and where I need to grow through it and how I need to change. So I might say something about like my daughter, like a very viral post was when my daughter moved out of college, and in the morning before she was supposed to catch her plane, she goes to school about 800 miles away from where I live. She sent me
Oh,
a
is this the
picture.
packing one
Yes.
where you showed? Yeah.
And she sends me this picture of her in the mirror, and all you see in her dorm room is it looks like it exploded. And there's just shit everywhere. And it's, there's no other way to say it, but it just looks like the biggest train wreck. And she has a 5 p.m. flight and it's 9, and she's like sends me a picture with a thumbs up, and I had to not have a heart attack, that I was like, how is she needs to be out of her dorm, it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I mean, her roommate was going to be there to do some of it, but basically she had responsibilities, and it was complicated for her because she needed to move her stuff to a house she's living into the fall, even though in the summer she's going to be she was living in a different dorm. So she had a lot to manage. She had a huge test the day before. And I wrote about how I had to deal with the fact that my daughter always gets it done and she always figures it out. I don't know how, and it would not be the way I would do it. and I've taught her the way I would do it, but she seems to
Mm,
embrace her own thing, but she always gets it done. And she did. And so that was me. Like she's doing what she needs to do to take care of herself, and that needs to be celebrated. I need to realize that, I need to back off and I need to let her do it, or learn from the mistakes. Either way, I was kind of accepting that if she didn't make her plane, then we were going to have to figure out she was going to have to figure out what she was going to do about it. And
hmm.
so there's going to be lessons learned all around, but I needed to be a spectator in this and not a control freak. And
Yeah.
it was really hard. The whole day I was a little sick to my stomach, but
Mm.
I didn't say anything. And God bless her, about 2:45, she texted me and said, on the way to the airport. And I was like, okay. I'm sure her
Oof.
bag was filled with like some wet towels and some Ritz cracker crumbs or something. I don't know,
Yeah.
but she pulled it off, and I'm proud of her for it. So yeah, so that's how I deal with social media. Is I don't let anybody dictate to me what my terms are, what my boundaries are. Um, Even and I live with their disappointment sometimes. Like,
Mm,
there's been times I write about stuff and people are like, I'm so disappointed in you for talking about this or for this
mm.
viewpoint. They'll leave me 1-star ratings all of a sudden, even though the last post was that they followed me for 10 years. Like, and I
Yeah.
just have to live with that disappointment so I can live with myself. And
Mm,
I've scaled way back in my social media use, even though it might look like I'm online quite a bit. I use my scheduler.
hmm.
I
Me too, by the way. I
Yep.
think people think I'm on there every day, and I'm like, oh
Right.
no, one of the
No.
best purchases I ever made
I,
was my
I mean,
scheduler.
I'm probably, because it is my main source of income, I am on there every day, but I'm not on
Mm,
there all of the time.
mm,
I check a couple times to make sure other people aren't commenting. I I do some things because I have several different businesses that I'm managing, but I also have people that help me, and I just and I don't what I've learned is that you know you really can't change a mind on social media, but you can always change a mind face to face. And I've just seen so much ugly in people that I really used to enjoy, and it makes me uncomfortable. So I've decided that I don't really want to know what everybody's thinking all the time. Like
mm,
I don't want to know that.
hmm.
I, if you're going to show yourself to me, show me who you are in real life. You know, and then I'll go from there. The other thing I realized from all of this time on social media is that everybody has a backstory. Every time somebody lashes out at me, if I start engaging with them, there's always a reason. Even the most awful racist person has a backstory on why they feel that way. I don't like it, but I'm a huge um I don't fan is not the right word, but I love knowing people's stories, and I love. There's a great line from the show Ted Lasso where he's like, "Oh, I love meeting other people's mothers because it's like the backstory to why they are the way they are." That's how I feel. Like,
Right. It helps
everybody
us see the humanity. Is that kind of your perspective? Because yeah,
it's what fascinates me about social media. And once you start engaging in that and you really start asking the right questions, you will find exactly why somebody is the way they are. It's either their family upbringing, they've been scorned, they've lost an opportunity to somebody else, they are broken, they're in grief. I mean, it is all those, and that doesn't mean that I forgive them or that I like them or anything, but there's always a backstory. And if you can start with the backstory and start addressing that, then you usually can get to why they are responding in a certain way on social media. So there's been a lot of boundaries that I've put up that I don't go past anymore. It's not worth it for me as a I don't want to say I'm a public figure because I certainly don't have paparazzi on my lawn, but as a public figure on social media, I just I pick and choose my battles very wisely,
hmm,
and choose to live with other people's disappointment in me for however I
yeah.
may not participate.
Because I think
So
it's perpetual. Because
mhm.
I actually said to my husband, so I um very, very recently, I don't want to share what I said, but just the sort of age-old almost like thing that if I do this, there's judgment. If I do this,
Yep.
there's judgment. It's like you
Right.
can't.
You
So
can't
it's
win.
like, am I in integrity? Am I walking up my values?
Yep.
Am I, for me, putting blinders on to not compare and not get drawn into everybody else's choices and stories, but this is my mission in the world. This is
Right.
how I'm using my voice and resources and impact and
Right.
keep doing the thing and stay healthy. So I am in a resource place so I can care about people and love and serve from a resource place and not from a
Agreed.
place of perpetual rage and pain and fear and outrage
Yep.
and whatever. And I'm not
Right.
and other people are in integrity when they're using their voice differently from me, right? So, but
Right.
it's like, but my job is do take care of this, be
Right.
responsible for my life. So,
Yep.
yeah.
That's
Um,
I totally agree. It's kind of like that Brene Brown quote too, where if you're not in the arena, fighting the same fight, then you don't get to judge, what's going on. And that's the other thing is like there's so many people who are like, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And they don't take into account, and this, how long it takes to build a platform of followers on a certain thing. And then just to all of a sudden be talking about something else. And it's not the disappointment even, it's just the fact that the social media, when you build platforms, it's usually on a centered topic. So that's what the expectation is. And so when you start changing it, no matter what, even I even can feel a shift sometimes with people who follow me about parenting, and now I'm talking about menopause all the time, or something else. There's a little shift in that. And so I always just say people need to have a respect for the people who are online sharing that, especially when they have a large platform, that this was not an overnight success. This is decade. It's a decade for me of building this platform of people who have been following me now. And just to, you know, again, I don't want to silence my voice, but I am also like, there is a business expectations tied to it that you have to take care of yourself, but also take care of the community you built.
mm,
And that's kind of how I try to look at it now is my community is there, because they know exactly what they want to hear from me as well. And I don't want to feed the beast, but it is a business. And I get it sometimes if I come out of left field with something that surprises them, they're just like, wait a second, what's going on now? And, so
right.
it's a balance to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and feel good about what you're saying. Um, and also make it run online effectively. So
Mm.
I don't want
Yeah.
to be
I
a
mean, we
person
could
that
have
just
a,
gets those argumentative comments either. So
yeah. I mean, it's a good, really relevant topic, and honestly, it could be a separate episode because
oh,
it is important. I will say that there are things that I say that they are my values. They've always been my values, but people aren't
right,
always aware of everything that I think is obvious. And I
right.
post something that I believe in, and thousands of people can unfollow me in a heartbeat. And
Oh,
I'm good with that because I'm
me
like,
too.
cool, because these are my values and I'm
Yep.
walking them
Yep.
out. So,
And you are right.
um,
Sometimes people are surprised, and I'm like, how could you be surprised?
yeah.
Like I'm like, what have I ever said that would maybe not lead you to believe that? But people see what they want to see. And
Yeah, and they're not as concerned with our full lives as
no,
we are. Like, is
right.
they're living their lives. Okay, let's shift. So,
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit more about the transition. You're in this large transition. Kids may or may not be coming back. Like one of your kiddos is choosing not to come back this summer. You talked about some angst and grief. I'd like to
Mhm.
circle back a little bit because I do work with a lot of women who this is hard. I will say that my kids were spread apart. There were large
Okay.
age gaps, so I had a bit more time between
Mhm.
like some of the shifts. Sometimes I grieved hard and
Mhm.
unexpectedly. And but not always like it was just like it was
Sure.
weird and not always expected, but all welcome. Like it all needs to be welcome, I think. So I will say I'm loving this season of Empty Nest.
Mhm.
I feel I love that my girls have their own places in the world. They're doing okay. They've got
Yep.
a safe home to live in where they
Right.
are. They're always welcome here. Like
Yep.
my mom used to talk about leaving the porch light on for her
Yes.
kids, and I feel like that too. Like they will always have a soft landing place, but I'm really delighted by having like fewer people making messes and I'm not
Right.
cooking for them
Yep.
and picking up their crap and or
Right.
reminding them to pick up their crap and even just working, like I
Mhm.
dedicated myself to these humans, loved it, was so grateful. But now I get to put more of my energy and focus into building my work, which was
Mhm.
always sort of low on the priority list because
Yeah.
I was, yeah, tending to them. And so I read, it was on an Instagram page that I'm not super familiar with. It's called Gen X Adulting.
Okay.
And I don't know who the person was, if they were a host or if they
Mhm.
were like a guest or I don't know. But anyways, but they said, I'm not a believer in empty nest. And then part of the quote was because we have an open nest or a swing
Mhm.
door philosophy. And I
Yep.
thought, oh, that's interesting because I don't see it as a binary. But
Right.
yeah, so what's coming up for you around that?
I am also all over the map on the grief and gratitude timeline.
Mhm.
I often tell younger moms who are coming up that um, I'm also like I don't believe you should say you're going to miss this one day when you're in the middle of a temper tantrum or a playroom that is a disaster or somebody writes on your walls. I agree with you. The caretaking, the actual caretaking, like the picking up the messes, the constant what's for dinner, the dishes, like all of those things to me are, I agree, are mentally exhausting. And the worry of, you know, those teen and tween years about what they're doing all the time and are they smart enough to know to make right choices, like it was exhausting for me. So I don't miss that part as much either, even though two of my kids are here for the summer. They're a little cleaner than they used to be, and the one who actually is the messiest is at college. So when we were actually putting our house on the market, I was like, I love you, but I'm kind of glad you're not here. And she was like, I totally agree. She was like, that would be a train wreck. So that part, I agree with you 100%. Like there's parts of parenting that I was okay with putting to bed right now, just because, we live in the sandwich generation where I'm also caring for my aging mother. My in-laws have hit some health challenges. My family's very spread out. So there's a lot of driving to places and picking people up and doing those things. So it is, I find it exhausting, the mental energy that we have to spend. And I also agree that it's not necessarily an empty nest. And I often say that my kids right now are sitting on the branch. They have one foot like ready, they can fly off, but they also kind of come back into the branch. They might hang out in the nest for a little bit. So I often say I'm not quite empty nesting. I have kids who are living on my branch, is how I describe it to people, because and they shouldn't, they're in college or university, and they shouldn't be they are responsible for themselves, but to be honest, financially they are still on my dole, and I'm very keen about that, and I still have a lot to teach them. For example, in the US, like I know the insurance system is different, but we have new insurance, and so there's been a lot of discussions and some mistakes about insurance issues when they go to get an eye appointment or things like that.
Mm.
And I realized that even though we really tried to give our kids a good money sense of money management, we really never talked about the complexities of insurance. And I was like, how did we how did we miss that? And but we
Mhm.
did. Then there's a lot, they're moving into apartments this year, so all of a sudden I'm like, well, maybe we should get a fire extinguisher, or these things, like
Oh
just
yeah.
all of
That's
these
me. I bought my girls like these fire
fire
blankets
blankets.
and
Yes, I
like
have those. So there's just like there's still a lot to think about. So I always say I'm not an empty nester. My kids are on the branch. Even though I don't think one of my daughters is going to come home uh ever, probably she'll probably never live in my house again. I don't think, because she's really very independent, and she's probably going to be at school the next few summers. She works in a lab, a research lab, and I think she's already got her life planned out. I might be surprised. The other two will probably take a little bit longer, which is fine.
Mhm.
But I just kind of live in this world of grief and gratitude all the time, where I really do miss some of that busyness and the family time and the family dinners that we had all the time and the laughter and I definitely we had the house where a lot of the kids hung out and there was always kids here Fridays and Saturdays. I often volunteered to have the marching band party or the soccer party or the pasta dinner and I loved that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that is where, putting that to bed is a little hard for me. A
Mm-hmm.
little easier than I thought it would be, but it's really hard. But I think you're right. Like, I think for me, what I did do well was I started this new business with my website, parentingteensandtweens.com, with a friend, a mutual friend of ours, Kira Lewis. And I ended up just buying the business out from her. And so I have this whole new thing that I'm working on that I'm doing by myself, where I'm paying some employees and learning a different skill set that I've never had before. Where do I take that business? And that takes up a lot of my time. Moving into a different house where there's 4 whole rooms that I have in a house now that I won't have in my next house. So what do I do with that stuff? And do we keep some of it? Do we give it away? And there's a lot, I'm reading a lot about how a lot of people are like, your kids don't always want that stuff, so
Mm-hmm.
you should let it go. And so we're having those discussions with the kids. And it's a lot harder for my husband than it is for me because I'm not a stuff person, but
Mm-hmm.
he is. So the amount of emotional bandwidth that goes into each decision of, do I need this coffee mug anymore, or do I need this small piece of furniture? So I'm finding that it's a lot at once, but I'm also kind of glad for it because it does make that transition for my, like, lose my kids leaving the nest into the branch a little bit easier for me to have so much to occupy myself with. And trying to reconnect with some friends. And I said, because I was so busy and didn't really feel like myself the last 4 or 5 months, I'm on what I call, every time I have lunch with a friend, I'm like, I'm on my reunion tour right now before I leave. I'm trying to have a lunch or a coffee or a walk with everybody I know that I care about before I leave and spend a
Mm-hmm.
couple hours with them so I can feel good about leaving and starting someplace new, and saying all the wonderful things about the last 13 years I've lived where I've lived and raised my kids with these people. And but you're so right when you said, what I'm saying, I know every other woman is saying. We're all worried a little bit about our kids. They might be doing great, but there's usually something going on that we're a little worried, or our health, or somebody's health in your life. I want to downsize, but can I downsize? Can I move? What about my job? I'm worried about my position, but I'm scared at my age. Can I start something new? I hear the same things over and over and over again. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's what I always try to tell people now is that I think it's all normal, and use it as an opportunity, right? To carve out the
Mm-hmm.
life that you want. So we just bought a house near water because I've never lived near a lake before. And I love walking and I love water. And if I can't be at the beach on the East Coast, I'm going to try to live near a lake. So we use this move as an opportunity to transition to something smaller, but upgrade our life path a little bit to something that my husband and I felt really passionate about. Not everybody has that opportunity, but I think if you can do it in a way that makes sense for you and your family, or just you, I think that's phenomenal. So that's how I'm bridging this grief gratitude, going to the gratitude side a little bit more, is that I miss my kids with an ache sometimes. I
Yeah.
really, once I got over the hump of who I wanted to be as a parent, I found it even harder to part with them. But you're right, like, fulfilling what you want to do for yourself is also incredibly satisfying, and I'm feeling that a lot too. And I think if you have a good relationship with your kids, like my kids said, I'm so happy you and dad are doing this for yourself, and that made me feel really good. They weren't like, oh, I can't believe I might have to share a bathroom with my sister now, or when we come home,
Mm-hmm.
or bedroom, or whatever it was, because our house is going to be smaller. It was, this is a great opportunity for you guys, and I'm excited for you. And so that
Yeah.
adult relationship is pretty phenomenal as well.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, one of the things I constantly come back to in my own thinking and reflection is how we just te have this tendency to make everything about either or, a binary. And it's
Yes.
like, and most things live in the messy in between. So
Yes.
it's like, I still have flashes of missing, like imagining my son and his friends in their, they've just been playing basketball outside and they're dribbling the
Yep.
ball back home and then they're
Right.
laughing. And I have like these memories and it's like,
Right.
and there's that ache, accompanying ache. It's like because
Yes.
it was beautiful
Right.
and
You
it
were
was
there for
this,
it.
yeah, and it was a wonderful season of life. The problem, I think, is when we live attached to
Mhm.
that and we don't allow ourselves to continue to live fully forward. I think
Right.
that's where women get really stuck and lose their joy, and it's like it is messy and there can be a lot of, okay, who am I now? And
Mhm.
what do I even want? I don't remember what I want apart
Right.
from, taking care of everybody else. It's like, and that's okay. It is okay to be in that place. It's okay
Right.
to have all the feelings.
Yep.
The only thing that really is problematic is the judgment.
Mhm.
Thinking that we're doing it wrong. Oh my God, something
Right.
bad is, it's wrong. It's like, no, it's just messy. It's like
Right.
if we can accept the messiness and allow ourselves to kind of be in movement though. I think that's sort of for me, what comes up is like, it's like you tilt into the grief and the remembering, but then also come on back and look forward and
Right.
start to kind of think, okay, well, what brings me joy now? And, you
Right.
know, I love also how you talked about kind of that bridging the gap because lately, just because of the theme of my community summer session, where I talk a lot
Mhm.
about living on purpose, and I have a life visioning course that, like, where I'm talking about building a soul honoring life and that, like, what's next. And one of the things I want to offer people is like often it feels like the gap or the gulf between current reality and kind of the ideal, what we want, if we can get that far, seems so big, hard
Right.
to bridge. And it's like often actually I find that it's not so far as we think. Often there
Mhm.
are incremental in-betweens
Mhm.
that really make a huge we get a huge return on investment.
Right.
And yours is still a big change, that big move, but I really appreciate like how it's like, okay, you're not going to the warmth and the sun
Right.
necessarily in the beach. So, but what's a beautiful bridge? I can
Right.
live by water. Is that
Right.
possible? For another person, it might be I can make weekly trips to the beach. You
Right.
know,
Whatever it is. I
yeah.
think
So, mhm.
progress. I'm sorry. I think you've just hit on something for me that was a major mental mind shift was I mean, and I think that it's the instant gratification culture that we all are kind of tied up into right now, that we can buy anything in a snap or do anything. And that I think I unintentionally got wrapped up in that, and I really neglected to see progress and that small bits of progress that I was making in my life, and even small changes. And I always want to go from 0 to 100 in about 24 hours. And like a life change is not a transition for me. It's kind of like I go to bed and I wake up, and then it's changed. I can't do that in this period of life because there's a lot of unknowns. And I wish more women understood that it is okay to not know, but also to try new things at our age. And I often encourage, I get a lot of people who are like, oh, I would love to write, but I don't know where to start. And I'm like, buy a journal or just start writing in your book, or anything. Just type a note to me, send me a note or anything. That's writing. And people are so
Right.
mesmerized by this idea that they can't do something because other people are already doing it. And
Mm,
that's what I feel like in your 50s and 60s, like you think you can't start something because younger people are already immersed in it. And
mm.
instead, we can carve our own path and do it however we.
Yes,
Somebody
please.
told me I would make all my money off of social media like 20 years ago when there was no social media really. I would think they were insane.
Mm,
But here I am, 52, and I make my money off of social media. So, and I'm not an
yeah,
influencer per se, I'm a writer, but I
yeah,
just found a way to do it. So,
yeah. I love that. Yeah, so yeah, okay. So it reminds me of, how a belief that I have, which is that we find our way in progress, not before. So we have to just like step into the little bit of light we have because and hold everything loosely because you're like you just said with the social media thing, you could how could you have ever seen that? You couldn't have. We can't
No,
see what we haven't seen before.
right.
So we don't have to see the whole path. We just step into that one little thing
Mhm.
and just sort of get that. That's where that movement comes in.
Right.
So yeah, I find this all very exciting. And I
Mhm.
don't and that doesn't mean there isn't heartache
Mhm.
and fear and uncertainty and grief. All of that is welcome. And I think if we can embrace all of that, the full human experience, then we can,
Mhm.
it's easier for us to just be fully present and open to the gift of this day
Right.
and this season.
Mhm. I a friend recently said something, and then I actually saw on social media that creepy feeling when somebody's talking about something and then you see a meme on it the next day or something, like somebody was
Mm,
listening. But I think what they said, it was like uh oh, and I'm not going to say it right, but something like feelings are just markers for the day. They're not mandates for what you need to be or something like that. And I really sank into that just because I have a feeling on one day, whether it is guilt or gratitude or whatever that is, or fear, or that inability to not think I'm enough, that feeling, it's just a marker for where I'm at that day. It doesn't define who I am. And I keep on thinking about that because I have a lot of feelings all of the time. And I
mhm,
often feed off of other people. So if somebody else is really anxious, I will take on their anxious, or if they're feeling guilty, I'll feel guilty for no reason, or shame, or I
mm,
I I I feel like I have that empath type personality where I will literally take it on. And it's really, that was one of the hard things with the teen years. But I think even as women in this time, we're so used to being defined by others and what they're going through that we get stymied. And so I think what you're saying is so right. It's totally fine to feel all of those things, but you have that side of you, and then you also have that side of you that says, okay, but this is still where I'm going. This is still where I want to go. So feeling these things is totally cool, but that doesn't mean that you get out of the car and stop driving. You still
yeah,
just have to keep going and try to
yeah,
head where you want to go, because you'll never get there if you stop. And I just, that whole idea of how to process your emotions, but that not to let them define you, is something that I struggled with my whole life. And I think that's probably the change in me the last probably like 3 or 4 years, is not letting that define me. I've always
yeah.
been like, I've always let my own anxiousness and worry. I've always often used that as an excuse, as that's just who I am. And then I have to realize that that's not who I am. It's just what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah,
And then,
exactly. It's what you're experiencing in this
mhm,
moment. And if you will allow it, it'll just keep moving.
yeah, right.
And then there will
You can
be a
just
new
keep going.
experience.
Right. Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, like I was just thinking, just don't set up camp there.
Yep.
Like feel,
Right.
process, learn how to do this work because like it is really brave to learn how to do that. And you've talked about your own journey. I've certainly had to learn all of these skills myself as well. Most of
Mhm.
our parents didn't know
Yeah.
they didn't have language for this. They didn't know how to
No,
model it. So
no
yeah,
idea.
we've been having to do that. Our generation has needed to do a lot of hard work
Right.
to shift generational patterns, to become
Mhm.
freer, healthier, more emotionally intelligent, and hopefully
Yes.
allow a lot of
Yeah.
that to spill over onto our children.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So, oh, there was something I wanted to bring up. It's gone. It'll come back maybe.
Sorry. It's probably because I
Um,
interrupted you.
no, well, that's just part of my brain
Yeah.
in this season of life. So I do want to ask, I think we'll start wrapping up here. A couple of things I think I mean, we could go many directions, but maybe if we could leave listeners who are in this transition or a sort of similar transition where maybe they've, well, actually, okay, two sides to this because I get to be with people who are in sort of both of these situations. One, you poured yourself in wholeheartedly to the parenting journey, which doesn't mean everything. Like I did that, and I have a child who died. So was it
Right.
all roses and unicorns? No, it was not.
Right.
I adore these humans. It was a privilege to be the
Right.
mama of these humans. I love them so much. So hard doesn't mean it wasn't this
Oh,
amazing experience. But
right.
so pour yourself wholeheartedly, and now you needing to sort of loosen your grip on what was so that you can start to reimagine your life, maybe start to kind of find some new dreams, some forward movement. By the way, side note for anybody, I feel pretty strongly about this. I actually think it's a gift we give to our kids because we can be a soft landing place and be in a beautiful relationship, but part of that is learning how to let them fly.
Yeah.
Right? If we hold too tightly, what happens is sometimes they feel guilt and responsibility for our
Yeah.
well-being,
Yep.
and that's not okay.
Totally
They
agree.
are not responsible for our well-being.
Right.
So learning how to do this emotional work, spiritual, mental work, and everything so that they can fly, but also in some cases, people weren't the parents they wanted to be. There was a lot of trauma and heartache, and there's a sense of like they don't want they're holding attached to that because they feel like, but I need to repair, I need to
Mhm.
fix and everything. And unfortunately, like you can continue building forward, you can't go back. Like that's
Right.
not how it works. There
Right.
is a human timeline. And while some things are circular and all of that, and this age and birth and death
Mhm.
is a timeline. So
Right.
it's finite. So okay. So, regardless of our experience, there is a letting go, I think, that needs to happen. So, for people who are in the transition, you're in it with them. So, do you have two or three maybe tips or thoughts that you're even practicing right now that are helpful that you could also offer to others?
Sure, I can try. I can tell you what's worked for me personally. The, going back into what you said, first of all, or a minute ago, with you know, allowing them to let go. I also think it's really important that you model for them that you're taking care of them of yourself
Hmm.
now, and that's what I think is that it is totally attached to what you're saying. Not only are you showing them it's healthy for them to let go to let go and that you are more than just their parent, you're also modeling for them self-care and chasing your dreams, and that you're never too old to start something new, or all of those things that we always tell our kids, but they need to see them. And so I would say that letting go part is so important, but also the modeling for them, because I didn't really see that in my parents. And so they didn't take care of themselves incredibly well, and they didn't necessarily ever show how to repair a relationship, or even just chase their dreams. And so I think in letting go, in the same breath, you're also modeling for them how they can take care of themselves and what we're learning to do ourselves, but you're modeling it for them now, which I think is incredible. Because it's very hard, as we both know, to model something you've never seen. And so I think that's such an important component of how you can learn how to celebrate the letting go part. Is not only are you giving them the space to live their life, but they're also seeing how you can live yours. And I think that's incredibly important. The other thing I think that I have learned, and I don't know in Canada as much in the United States, but something that I will repeat over and over and over again is you have to let your kids fail, and you have to let them make mistakes, and they will probably not learn if you don't let them fall in your face. And it's better to do it in the early years, but even doing it in the later years is so important. And I talk about this with parents, but also even my own friends a lot of the time, with, oh, kids these days, they start off and they're like, they don't know how to do this, they don't know how to do that. But in the same breath, they will do something crazy and we'll just cover the cost of it. Or they will, they're like, oh, my kid flew to Cancun for spring break. I didn't do that. But I'm like, who's paying for it? They're like, so you have to be accountable for your kid and the life that the life skills you want to give them. And I know for one of my daughters, she does not learn. I can tell her the stove is hot, but she's still going to touch it because that is just who she is. And I've learned that she has to learn on her own. And sometimes it takes her 4 or 5 times, not always, but but sometimes that's just the way it is. So I have found that even though I love to be in control of everything, I can't be. And the greatest gift I have ever given my kids, and what people from the outside have told me, is that I let them fail and I will give them a recommendation and then let them do it on their own. And there's been times they've lost their own money or they haven't gotten into a program because they like a prestigious program because they refuse to do it the way on the time frame that I said they should do it, or they might have not gotten a grade because I might not have taken something to school that I already reminded about them 5 times. I think everybody needs help. This is not a I'm not
Hmm.
going to help my kids thing. But
I totally hear what you're
yeah,
saying. Yeah,
but in the same sense, like I just believe that, especially in these years, the later high school and early university years, they have got to figure out how to do things.
hmm
And I have some friends who are professors, and just when I hear that parents are still calling professors or trying to solve problems, or they
hmm
even like getting in the middle of just different problems, and these Facebook groups where parents are constantly trying to solve these things for my kids, like for their kids, like oh, my professor's or my kid's advisor isn't getting back to them, what should they do? Well, I know I went and sat outside my professor's room one time until he was done for class, and that's when I went and talked to him to change a class. Like, they've got to figure it out on their own or
hmm
suffer the consequences. And
I always say like, and like my youngest is just 20, and she is like and she's had some hard challenges, but still like since she left a couple years ago, like I don't just jump in. I will
right.
offer. I will
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
would you like any support with that, or do you want an
Yeah.
idea about that? And if she says no, it's no.
Right.
I'm like, cool, you got this. And she
Right.
does have this. And
Right.
it's so amazing to see, like I will with her in particular, um, sometimes because of some of the things she's had to navigate, I was like, I don't know if she's going to make it. I don't know if she's going to figure this out. And
100%.
it's just the growth that she
Hmm.
goes through every year is just like, wow. And if I had jumped in
Yep.
and tried to do all the things, it just wouldn't happen. She wouldn't be flourishing. So,
I have a daughter just like that. And there's been times where, I just hold my breath and cross my fingers. But I think knowing that they can always come home, or that they have that safe space, that gives them the ability to do that. But I think the more we try to step in for our kids, the less self-confidence they have about themselves.
right. And
So it's
that's a key is like I like to highlight is this isn't just like an idea, an opinion. It's like, how do we build resilience? We build
right,
resilience through learning how to do hard things, feeling
right.
anxiety and showing
Hmm.
up anyway, doing
Yeah,
something messily, like,
right.
and
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Like, my girls will support each other a lot. There's,
Hmm.
the big sister will offer advice in a way that her little sister can receive, which is
Hmm.
different from parents,
Right.
saying it. Do your girls support each other?
They do. It's a little different since mine are so close in age. They're
Mm,
more almost like triplets. And
right.
they will kind of talk to each other, but they're so different, that their life advice and what they're pursuing is almost a little different. And they go to 3 different, really different schools. But what I will
Okay.
find is, especially when they're home, they will start bouncing stuff off of each other. And one will come and I'm like, and they'll say, oh, my sister said this, is that something I could do? And I was like, 100% that is something you could do. And so I would say that they're great about that life advice. I think that will happen as they like further, but
hmm
they are great at sharing what's working for them. And then the other one's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And I was like, I've been saying that for 5 years, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, because that's what I find is like there's a limit to mom talk,
A
and
hundred
then
percent.
it's like coming there. I'm just really grateful. I guess that's really the end thing is like I'm grateful
Right.
that they're forging their own friendship and
Yeah.
relationship, and that.
Right.
Yeah,
I
I
had a really funny popular meme that I wrote about 5 or 6 years ago. That's like, all the best. advice your teenager will ever hear will come out of somebody else's mouth besides your own.
Right.
Like, that's like,
Although that's my husband also. And even
oh,
like his daughters will call him on it and yeah, mom told us that 20 years ago, dad. And now the news channel said
right.
it. And so you're like, right, you're on it.
I know
So,
it's hysterical, but yeah, and I get that too. I mean, I never thought my parents knew anything, and they did. They were much wiser than I gave them credit for. So I respect that. I'm okay with it to a certain extent, but that's why I think we have to let them. We can't save them because they also have to learn that yeah, you do know what you're doing. Like my one daughter is in this research program, and she's only in it because the information came out on a Sunday, and I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds perfect for you. She's reading to me over the kitchen table. I'm like, you got to send the professor an email right now. She's like, it's Sunday. I'm not emailing him now. And I'm like, I would email him now because you want to express interest. There's a lot of students in the biology program where she goes to school, and she just didn't want to. And so I said, I'm just going to say it one more time. The early bird gets the worm. And sure enough, she finally, like 2 hours later, sent an email with her little description, and he responded an hour later, and she got an interview for the next day. And so that I was like, see, maybe I know what I'm doing. And even then, she didn't really give me credit, but she will still talk about that was a changing, like a mindset shift for her, that she
mhm.
should start trying to capitalize on these opportunities right away and things like that. So the hardest part for me sometimes is my, immaturity to want to say, I told you so. And things like that. But I'm getting a lot better at that as well, to just let it ride and be like, that's great that you do that. Maybe next time you can do that as well. And just leave it at that. So I don't do the I told you so as much as I like to do it in my head.
Um, I have one more question for you, but like I do want to say that, also my kids have taught me so much. I think in some areas of life, they are braver, wiser, cooler humans. And they
Oh,
definitely taught me so much. And like, for instance, my oldest daughter, Katya, she's always been really good at making money. She's a higher energy person. Like she's
yeah,
competitive. She's got multiple things on the go and she's thriving in that
yeah.
way. And I'm not saying I need her energy. I don't have her energy. Um, but she has inspired me to grow in being able to receive money,
Mm,
to increase my wages, to ask for what I need, to have a
yep.
thriving business. Like it's her example.
Hmm.
And
That's
and
great.
then it motivates me to keep healing my own stuff around this and growing because I want to leave a healthy legacy for them and that.
Right.
But it's
I love
really
that.
beautiful how it's reciprocal as well in some really cool ways. Okay,
Yep.
so my final question then, Whitney, because I could talk to you for 3 more hours, but is what's bringing you joy or lighting you up in this season?
Definitely, as you just mentioned, my family. So the reason why I think I've been able to get through a tough time when I was losing myself is that my three girls are in a good place.
Mm,
I think they've found confidence that they didn't always have. They've found their own joy and their own passions, and they're starting to find their purpose. And they're just, as you said, good, cool people. I really enjoy being around them, and I'm immensely proud of what they're achieving in life. Not the achievements, but who they're becoming and
mm.
their thoughtful approaches to the world and how they want to serve others in the professions that they're pursuing. So that, even just talking about it, gets me a little like teary. So that's by far my biggest joy. But I think that's my familial joy. But I think for me is that as somebody who has always felt fairly self-confident, I lost that a little bit, and I'm starting to find it again. And so
Mm.
even the fact that there was just a time where I was doing a lot of podcasts, I stopped for a little bit because I felt like I couldn't really control my thoughts, and I felt like I was all over the place. And I know I interrupted you once, but I was even interrupting because I couldn't keep track of the thoughts in my mind because I have so much going on. So I think I've carved out some mental space or the margins in my own life so where I can process things better. And so I'm finding joy in a lot of the things that I didn't enjoy a lot. So connecting with people online. I almost gave up my writing, that part of it. I was going to keep my parenting teens and tweens business where I'm a little more anonymous. I'm more of the background noise, but I almost gave up my Whitney Fleming Writes page. I was very close. And
Mm,
I didn't. And I'm really glad about that. I've reconnected with my husband in a different way. And I just find joy in the little things that I was really having a hard time experiencing. Reading books. I've read 3 or 4 books in the past 6 weeks from just the free time I've allowed myself. Walking, finding this house near a lake. I could walk in a lake. It's a 4.2 mile walk around this lake, and I can't wait to do it over and over and over again because that brings me
mm,
joy. So I think carving out the margins in my busy life and finding space to do the things that I enjoy is what's bringing me joy.
mm,
I don't know if that is a oxymoron in a way, but just allowing myself to find time to do those things has been a game
mhm.
changer. But I had
Yeah.
to, um, it just, and I know we're probably over time, but something interesting I found was that my husband was unemployed for about 9 months, and we were walking a lot together in the morning and in the evenings. And I realized like I was really struggling with finding what I wanted to write about and things like that. And I finally realized it's because he's going on the walks with me in the morning and at night. And that was my
So that was
time.
your thinking time.
That was my thinking time. And so it wasn't that I didn't enjoy that with him, but I just realized I still needed time to myself. So I
Hmm.
started only walking with him at night, but I was starting off my day in the morning. And I was like, I'm really sorry. This sounds like I'm awful. And he's like, no, it's cool. I just wanted to be around because I'm always not here. And so that was such a light bulb moment for me about women. Like, here I am, I felt so guilty about being like, oh, I can't walk with you in the morning and the night, but I needed that time just
Hmm.
to process. And because I don't listen to anything and I don't wear AirPods, I just usually take my dog for about a mile and a half, and that's how I usually start my day. And then I often think about what I want to do that day. I think about my best topics for writing, and I realized I couldn't think about any of it. And it was
Yeah.
only because, and I loved that time with my husband, but I was
Hmm.
also sacrificing
Yeah.
something for it. And so just changing that started to free up more time for me to understand what I was feeling. And then what I all of a sudden I wanted to write more. And it was really, I thought that was really interesting that sometimes even filling it with something good is still
Hmm.
subtracting from what you need.
Yeah.
And so that was a real light bulb moment for me, that I was like, I really need to be on top of what I know I need to take care of myself. So even when I'm
Hmm.
doing these fulfilling things, it might not be what's best for me.
Yeah.
And that changed a lot.
Yeah. Love it.
So,
I start my day, I have a 90-minute window in my day, like,
yep,
or it's not a
yep,
window, it's like I build my life that way.
yep,
And with whether or not my husband's home, I
yeah,
have my planner and I've
yep,
got my coffee and I've got my
yep,
water and I'm just like, it's my internal thinking,
yeah,
processing, planning, dreaming, visioning time,
yep,
and I need it.
yeah, me too. Me too. I just
So,
didn't realize it because I thought like, oh, this is amazing. My whole life, I've never been able to walk with my husband in the morning, and we
yeah,
getting up early and doing it. But I didn't realize that what I was missing by
yeah,
not having that time. So,
yeah,
because then I would come home and I'd just sit at my computer and start working, but I wasn't nearly as productive.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Whitney. I've genuinely loved meeting
me too.
you in this, way. I already knew you online, but like
Yeah.
meeting you face to face, having a conversation. Thank you for your open heart, and I'm
uh,
glad you didn't quit. I'm glad that, as Banksy said, that we learn to rest and not quit. I think that was Banksy.
yep, for
So,
sure. Awesome.
okay, we'll see you around.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.